minutes late. Um, as we all know, the Karen Reed case just ended, but not even 20 minutes after the case ended, of course, the Alberts and the McCabe's had to come out. They had to sit down, all this, that, and the third. And shout out to I Don't Belong Here. That's the name of the channel. And I'm just gonna do an overview of her live stream and get on out the way. Okay. With that being said, here we go.
Bro, let's go, bro. Bro, what is that? Bro, they got me driving for the next 5 hours. I gotta get something. The defense suggested, but never proved that O'Keefe may have been killed inside this house owned by Brian and Nicole Albert and mauled by their dog Chloe. The Alberts said they only found out about John's death when Jen McCabe, who is Nicole's sister, barged into their bedroom.
And let me say this real quick while I'm saying it. I don't care what anyone tells me. Jim McCabe knew what happened that night. They need to put Jim McCabe on trial.
The Alberts say they only found out about John's death when Jen McCabe, who is Nicole's sister, barged into
Liar.
She was upset, and I immediately thought something had happened to one of her children.
And you're liar number
I
two.
noticed she in my bedroom.
And Nicole Albert, you're a liar number two. Fuck you.
At 6:30 in the morning right now.
Liar.
What did you tell you?
She said, John's out front. I think John's dead out front. I said, what are you talking?
Now, Brian Albert, are you not a cop? Why did you not check on John O'Keefe? Why was it 3 women and not you? Again, I'm just asking questions.
About Jen. And I'm like, I didn't know.
You still didn't piece it
I
together.
didn't understand what she was talking about because why would John be out front of my house?
At some point,
Please like, share, subscribe.
6:30 that morning, my sister Jennifer came bursting into my bedroom. Well, she came in, my husband and I just kind of sat up in bed, and she's saying, he's out in the snow, we found him out in the snow, we don't know if he's okay. And I'm like, Jennifer, what are you talking about? She was hysterical.
And what is it that wakes you up when I was woken that morning to my sister-in-law, Jen, had burst into my room. She was very upset. Almost hysterical.
And the dog, Chloe, was she up in the room where you had brought her up before?
Yes.
Is there overnight, is that correct?
Yes.
So I went in the front door.
Liar.
To the door. I walked up the stairs into their hallway, and then I think I knocked on their door.
Bedroom door?
Their bedroom door. And then I opened the door. I went in, and I walked over to the bed, and I was like, Brian, Nicole. Because I was in a position where I felt like the world was going on around me, so much was happening, but I also was aware that I was just about to wake up 2 people that are sound asleep, and they're going to see me standing over their bed and be startled, wondering, what am I doing here?
That's what happens.
So it took a minute or 2, and then Brian woke up, and he immediately was like startled. I was like, Jennifer, what's going on? What are you doing? And then I believe I tried the best I could to say what was going on. I think I said,
Like, share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe. And if you're working outside, stay hydrated. Once again, if you're working outside, please be it's hot out here, y'all. Be safe. Let's get back to this.
Is that right?
Yes.
So you would agree that you unexpectedly, in terms of their view, unexpectedly walked into their house, basically in the middle of the night, middle of the morning.
Yes.
You indicated that when you went through their bedroom door, you sort of burst through, correct?
I opened the door. I don't know if I used the word burst.
You previously indicated
Really? Really,
Did you say
really?
you were loud or quiet?
Look
I
at her
was
trying to
saying
lie.
earlier, I
Look
was
at
like
Jim McCabe
where
trying to lie.
everything was going on around me, and I was just kind of like just a state of shock. And I remember thinking, I don't want to startle them, but I have to wake them up because obviously when I wake them up, they're gonna be panicked and think something terrible happened.
Why didn't you want to start them? Something terrible had happened.
I didn't want to give them a heart attack when I woke them up. You definitely like trying to wake them up. Yes.
What was the dog's reaction?
I don't want them to see you in the dark.
To the dog's face. In the mind of the dog, a relative stranger walks in the front door, climbs a set of stairs, the house is completely dark, walks into a bedroom door, and starts barking. The person starts barking. Get up, wake up, Brian, Nicole. And you don't remember seeing or hearing a dog at all. Okay.
Sister,
She said something to the effect, um, John is dead. She said, John's out front. I think John's dead out front. I said, what are you talking about, Jen? And I'm like, I didn't know.
You still didn't piece it
I didn't
together.
understand what she was talking about because why would John be out front?
Really,
of my house?
dude?
So, and massively confusing. There are police officers and EMTs on your front lawn. You're an officer. Why don't you just go outside and...
This dude is so full of crap.
I'm not a camp police officer. I'm a Boston police officer. I was just a little
You
young,
still could have went out front, you dopey-headed bastard.
the night before. By the time I came downstairs, police were already in my house. John was already gone. There was nobody to save. I would have taken a bullet for John O'Keefe.
The group which was together the night John O'Keefe died, speaking out after years of silence to set their record straight. Why speak out now after the verdict?
We took what we thought was the high road. Let the
Group of liars.
Alberts denied his allegations and said their children were targets of threats and harassment like Caroline's supporters. Public, have each of you been called murderers? Like actual murderers?
Oh, yeah, on a daily basis.
There have been threats to your lives.
Is that correct? Absolutely, absolutely. Whether it's phone calls, text messages, emails.
That's because we believe y'all took John O'Keefe up out of here, and that's why.
Targeting of witnesses in this case sets a dangerous precedent.
What's the blueprint? The blueprint is pick up witnesses, destroy their reputations, attack them, malign them, torture them, torture their kids, torture anybody that ever knew them, make them not testify.
Shut up, Mr. Albert.
And while doing so, take the jury pool.
You've been very quiet about it.
yeah, I'm just very sad.
Shut up, Nicole.
What has happened to all of us? It's just heartbreaking.
Here we go, y'all.
This is both the dash cam and an intelligent anti-bank system.
Oh my god, you guys, holy crap. So, I was just editing this video. I'm trying to get this video out as soon as I can. And as I'm listening, it dawns on me why it is
I'll be right back,
that
y'all.
Brian Albert did not come out of that house.
He never did come out of that house. So hell didn't it?
Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the I Don't Belong Here show, and I am your host, Samantha Domingo. I am a behavioral scientist, a career psychotherapist, a 6-year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, a master's level psychologist and counselor, and I am here breaking down what was the Karen Reed case and what now is the Justice for John O'Keefe case. And what a case it is. Not 48 hours after the incredible victory by Karen Reed, her family, and this incredible defense team, we have more information flooding out than anybody could even consume so quickly. So we've got multiple jurors speaking out. We've got the McCabe going on their little tour. We've got Michael Proctor, lead investigator Michael Proctor, doing his damage control. And we've got the attorneys, Alan Jackson, David Yannetti, and Bob Alessi speaking out about their experience in this case. Welcome to the post-Karen Reed case. Now, the thing about all of this information is it speaks volumes. It's helping us, those of us who deeply care about seeing justice for Mr. John O'Keefe, about seeing this thing through until the end, no matter what it takes. It gives us an incredible opportunity to continue to fill in lots of the little holes that remain. The defense's case that last week, where we heard from so many incredible professional experts, helped immensely, particularly the testimony of Dr. La Pasada, the chief medical examiner formerly from the state of Rhode Island, who has been a witness in countless states across the U.S. and who made clear once and for all, and this diagnostic assessment by Ms. La Pasada was aligned with the Commonwealth's expert, Isaac Wolf, who talked about the head injury that John O'Keefe had sustained. Now, what they agreed upon was that John must have experienced a fall backwards due to what is called a coup contra coup injury. And all that really means is that there's bruising inside the brain that comes from the way that somebody is forced backwards and the gravity. So when you are forced backwards and your head hits the ground, your brain inside your skull shoots forward. It creates bruise on the interior part of the brain, on the inside, creates bleeding.
We're
So
back.
because that injury, they agreed that he had died from a fall backwards. Dr. La Pasada made clear that it likely would have taken a bit of force to propel him backwards, that it was unlikely just falling the way you might slip and fall. And of course, we already know that due to the injuries that John sustained on the front of his face, right? To his nose, to his eye, or his eyebrow, and to the side of his head. So, it is very clear to many of us that he was likely punched and that he fell backwards as a result of being punched. Now, the really important bit of information that we got from Dr. La Posada was not just the coup contra coup injury, that is, the bruising that was evidenced on the back and in the front of the brain that would have occurred from gravity, from the force that John O'Keefe would have sustained hitting his head and then the brain inside the skull being propelled forward. What happened was the back of his skull, the bottom part was shattered. A combination of the swelling that was occurring inside of the brain and that collapsed skull caused the brainstem caused the brain and the brainstem to collapse in on themselves, which would have crushed all of the neurons that are responsible for things like respiration and heart rate. That meant that John O'Keefe would have been dead almost immediately. That opinion, by the way, was not just from the defense's medical examiner, Dr. La Posada. It was shared by the Commonwealth's Dr. Isaac Wolf. This means, though, that John O'Keefe was never left out cold, ever. He wasn't left out to die, not by anybody, not by Karen Reed, and not by anybody in the a house at 34 Fairview. What does that mean? It means that John O'Keefe had been dead before he was put outside in the cold. And once you understand this, everything else that happens after makes a ton more sense. Everything. From Jennifer McCabe's 911 call, the behaviors from all the folks in the house, including Brian Albert, who didn't come out of his house, and to all of those people that just couldn't imagine how a person like Brian Albert wouldn't have tried to save John O'Keefe, would never have left him to die. They are correct. He did not have to do that because John O'Keefe was already dead. So nobody left John O'Keefe to die in the cold. He was dead. In fact, by the time Jennifer McCabe stumbles upon that body, and I say Jen McCabe because she's the person who makes the 911 call and insists on 2 occasions as
She was the one that made the call.
he was.
We sent him a few different sizes, I guess, to see which size works for me.
2 occasions as she's speaking to dispatch that he was dead. I guess he's gone.
Okay.
And now she says it again. She doesn't go near the body. Remember, she does not go near this body. She has gone right to the phone. She's the one that calls 911. That's her designation. The last thing that you're going to do is pronounce them dead. And at that point, he was dead for probably around 6 hours. And the only reason why that was not assessed by the first responders on site is because if there is a suspicion of hypothermia, the body temperature drops. So it's very difficult to tell whether somebody is dead, has passed away, or is suffering from hypothermia. And I believe this to be universal, when the first responders stumble upon that type of situation, they are not to be called, that person is not to be determined to be passed away until their body temperature is attempted to return to normal at the hospital. Because people do come back from the dead. They freeze and they come back from the dead. That's the reason why John O'Keefe was not pronounced dead until later that morning. And we get plenty of indicators of that from Jennifer McCabe, who, by the way, is the world's worst liar and can't help herself but to tell us the truth.
Okay, I was wrong what just happened. I didn't even know I got knocked out for a minute. Apologize.
So, clearly, this is not helping matters. If anything, you would think laying low after the verdict, hoping that this goes away, would be the smarter position. Right? Inciting emotion would be the less smart decision. The less intelligent choice here, right?
But the hours of the McCabe's don't give a damn.
Be furious and scream and yell even louder. But you also have to keep something very, very important in mind. There is still a case out there, and that is Turtle Boys. So
okay, so in other words, this woman is saying it's not really about Karen Reed. This really is about Turtle Boy with the McCabe's and the Alberts. Yeah, cause I forgot they did come after Turtle Boy.
Broke the Karen Reed story wide open, and you have to give Turtle Boy tremendous credit. This
Damn
is a man
right.
who has balls of steel and is willing to put himself in these incredible situations to not just ask difficult questions, Barbara Walters style, but to not ever let these people here off the hook. Literally, to take a busload of people to their homes with a megaphone and scream and shout, calling them murderers, and screaming at them facts from the case, like, for example, Jen McCabe's 2:27 in the morning Google search, or the butt dials, the conversation that Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, who's not here in this interview, that they had around the same time that morning, back and forth, that they both claim were an inadvertent butt dial conversation, the first of its kind.
This is how I move forward with Purdue Global. Start your comeback today on purdueglobal.edu.
Alright, must have got the boards or not. Kind ever in the history of the world.
Your testimony was that you were having an intimate situation, that way, with Nicole at the time. And that's how you got dialed Brian Higgins, correct?
I don't believe I said that's how I let down Brian Higgins.
That's the
I
time.
think I said there was a time frame that was close. So I didn't say that, no.
What you said was you were in an intimate situation with Nicole at the time.
I'm not sure if you have something you can read me or show me.
Is that refresh your recollection that you indicated in the other hearing? Just the first part of that. Does that refresh your recollection?
It does.
Okay, here. Is it true that at the other hearing you indicated that at or around the 222 time frame,
Be back in a
you were
second.
working
Y'all.
together in a situation?
Yes, around that time I think it reads.
There's a second call at 222 and 52 seconds, 17 seconds later, correct?
Yes.
That call is actually from Brian Higgins to you, isn't it?
Yes.
And that call doesn't last 1 second. That call lasts 22 seconds, correct?
Yes.
If we would count off 22 seconds, that's an uncomfortably long time, is it not? Long enough to have a conversation?
I didn't have a conversation.
It's 22 seconds long enough to have a conversation.
No.
You can't, a human being can't have a conversation in 22 seconds.
Sure they could. I don't think it's anything of substance.
So that's
Be
why-
back in a minute.
22 seconds long enough to have a conversation.
I don't agree with it, no.
You had an explanation for what that 22-second call would have been and what the prior call would have been, correct?
Yes.
What was your explanation?
Well, I used a phrase that people commonly used as a butt dial.
So you think it's possible that you may have butt dialed Brian Albert for a 22-second call? You're not aware of it.
I think it's possible that he could have been inadvertently called back, but I have no recollection of that, nor did I have any conversation with anybody.
So they are doing this to try to convict Aiden Carney. So this is a revenge tour. And they're trying to paint themselves as harassed, as victimized witnesses who were accosted for doing nothing more than coming forward with the truth. So I'll never forget this. It's stuck in my mind always. This was in the summer before my 8th grade year, and I was a little hellion. And me and my friend, in addition to like sneaking around on the railroad tracks in a small town in Massachusetts, smoking cigarettes, we were drinking from these little juice bottles, from these 2 concoctions that we had made from stealing from our parents' liquor cabinets. And this was like the most disgusting thing you could find. It was like whiskey, vodka, like schnapps, like all this garbage mixed together. Just the most vile thing you could think to drink. And there was a parade going on in town. So the 2 of us are drinking and we're kind of walking in these big crowds. And I'll never forget it. My friend, his name is Eric Gabriel, he looked at me and he said, "You know, Sam, people only know whatever you tell them." And he said that because you could see that I was anxious that we were going to get caught. But that is the mentality here of Brian Albert. The idea is we'll just double down, we'll present ourselves in a certain way, and if we just keep presenting this way to the world and keep
Here
telling
we
the
go.
story over and over and over again, nobody can prove otherwise. So that is what Brian Albert is doing here. something else you need to know about Brian Albert, for those of you that are less familiar with him. He's the fixer in this situation. He's the guy that has helped all these other people with their rehearsed statements. He's
Talk
the guy
about
that
it.
went over the testimony of
Very
John McCabe,
rehearsed
over
statements, I
exactly
might
what to say.
add.
And that started on the night in question. It's the reason why there was phone conversations going back and forth between Brian Higgins and Brian Albert at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's the reason why Jennifer McCabe re-Googles House Long to Die in the Cold at 6:23 that morning after they find John O'Keefe.
So, how long to die in cold result in articles concerning time of exposure? And she says, we never got a chance to read it. But this is what's important here. This use of the word we, she does not see Karen Reed as a friend. So, for her to say the word we here, this is wildly and crazily out of place. In my mind, this is just screaming. There's not just deception, but there's a big problem here that needs to be looked at. My note here is that she wasn't with Karen when this happened. If I had any say in any of this, I would go back and review the GPS from everyone's phones. I would look at pictures, videos, and try to determine who Jennifer McCabe was actually standing next to at 6:23, 6:24 a.m. She's working with somebody to try and fix the mistake on her part of Googling at 2:27 in the morning how long it takes to die from exposure.
Jennifer McCabe, controlling the narrative.
I'm not even sitting by myself.
At 6:23 a.m. Look at where
Damn, it's not.
Jennifer McCabe is, what she is doing. It's also the reason why 5:07, as soon as she hangs up with Karen Reed, when Karen Reed calls her to look for John,
My old roof was leaking everywhere. When contractors quoted me their prices, I nearly had a heart attack. And I was able to this hotel service that saved me. Special fees. So, originally, I called them contractors.
for John, looking, going, you know where John is, because Karen Reed would have known that Jen McCabe was in the house at 34 Fairview, so she calls Jen McCabe looking for John. As soon as she hangs up, Jen McCabe calls over to her sister's house, 5:07. She calls Brian Albert, asking, what the hell should I do? And at that point, Brian Albert says, go to her house, right? Let's control the narrative. Now, great, we're in a position where we get to determine how this whole thing goes, how John
Talk
O'Keefe's
about
body
it.
is found. So, you also have to understand that the reason why she was Googling, Jen McCabe was Googling how long to die in the cold at 2:27 in the morning, is because, you know, I gotta hand this one. This one, I will say, was quite brilliant on the part of Brian Albert, who I am absolutely sure is the one who came up with this. He figured, knowing, as a former Marine and a former first responder, no, actually, at that time, he would have still been a Boston cop. So as a first responder, as a former Marine, he would have known that if somebody is suspected to be out in the cold, to have suffered hypothermia, they cannot be pronounced dead. And it was a genius decision on the part of Brian Albert. And that is the reason why Jen McCabe is Googling how long to die in the cold.
Well, so the indications would be that that dam was brought up and then they went away from to do another dam. So it can happen less than we said. That doesn't belong to open up a dam and start a new dam to be done very quickly. I'm not really pleased with this way. What I want is timing of interaction.
I see.
Sorry, but all the activity that we have is all prior to the recording of this event timestamp in the browser state.
Right, no. With regard to this particular example where the browser state DB is the last entry, so the activity happened before, is that unique to on this phone, or was it one of many examples?
No, I found many examples of this exact behavior.
What are you saying? Is that there were dozens of examples where Jen opened up Safari, looked at whatever was on the screen, and then hit new tab. Because the state
Damn it. Hold on. Hold on. Let me go up to where I was. Okay. I did not mean to do that. There we go.
was the state of this YouTube tab that he's showing us just before the alleged 227 Google search, the Safari Google search, was exactly that. It had been opened for like a second, and then a new tab was opened instead of, in other words, closing that YouTube tab. She just opened up a new tab to start something else. And there were dozens of examples of that exact behavior elsewhere.
Do you have an opinion as to the timing of that first search for Hustle on the Guy Cole?
What is that opinion? That would have happened at or before January 29, 2022 at 2:27:40 a.m. in the morning.
What was the basis for your opinion?
Again, how this particular phone operates with that exact operating system and comparing to other data on that phone. And what he was able to do is off his own system because you can't add it before that time.
The question was, at what point should we put John O'Keefe's body outside? Because at what point would it be viable to pretend, to assume that he died from hypothermia? So that is the purpose of that Google search. So you'll notice, at least in the clips that we've seen, Brian Albert is in charge. And you feel that, right? It's not a coincidence that he's the one seated right in the middle. So he's in charge of this group. You should also know that Brian Albert is the oldest of 7 children. He is the patriarch of his own family, of which he has 5 children. And so this is a very close family. They have all been born and raised, and most of their children remain in Canton, Massachusetts also. Okay, so the purpose of this whole charade is to try to convict Turtle Boy, to put Aiden Carney in jail. And with that, we'll continue.
And it's very sad.
For the first time, some of the key players in the Karen Reed trial sitting down for...
You'll also notice that a lot of what they say is true. It is very sad, Nicole. This is a very sad situation.
Yeah.
The problem is, it's hard to feel bad for these people because they put themselves in this situation and
Yeah.
they didn't have to. And we'll talk about that in a minute.
an exclusive interview. His friend, Jennifer McCabe, and her husband, Matt, former Boston Police Sergeant Brian Albert, and his wife, Nicole, and his brother, Chris Albert. All 5 of them pulled into the center of this high-profile case and now speaking out.
I also want to add something that Matt got in here leaves out, which is that Nicole Albert and Jennifer McCabe are sisters. That's an important detail for those who are not aware of the details of this case.
And I think the reason we all stayed quiet is because we were just witnesses. This is a thing that we
Witnesses my ass.
That's it.
Right, so you see how they're trying to paint themselves as witnesses. We're just witnesses.
Witnesses my
Hang on,
ass.
we're just witnesses. And they can see that until they're blue in the face. The problem with that is they're not just witnesses. They are absolutely not just witnesses. And it's a little harder to say now because none of them, with the exception of Jennifer McCabe, was called into the second trial. So while these people all testified in the first trial, none of them were even brought into the second trial. Jen McCabe is the only person that became the spokesperson in the second trial from that house, from the McCabe family.
It's the case that has captivated the country and divided the town. Karen Reed accused of killing her Boston police officer boyfriend John O'Keefe, hitting him with her SUV, and leaving him to die in a blizzard.
Correction. That's an old story, and it's very important.
Old
If
ass
you care
story.
about this case and you care about seeing justice for John O'Keefe, then
It's
you
about
surround
Karen
us
Reed
with
being
that
railroaded.
message. John O'Keefe was not left out in the cold by anyone.
He was already dead.
And not anybody in the house, because John O'Keefe was dead hours by the time he was discovered at 6 in the morning.
Now, after a second trial, the jury acquitted her of the most serious charges, second-degree murder and manslaughter. And hundreds of supporters in pink, Karen Reed's favorite color, cheering as the verdict came down yesterday.
I also want to say something, having been there this week. I was there on Monday. I gotta give the town of Dedham some credit here, because building across from the courthouse, the registry of deeds, basically allowed us to just take it over completely. Like, I mean, we were in and out of the bathroom in this office. We took over the front, the stairs, and they just let us do it. And you have to give them a shout out, because we were all over. I mean, the town was just mobbed, and as the days went on during jury deliberations, more and more people were there taking over the town. So you have to give the town of Dedham some credit for allowing Karen Reed's supporters to just take it over. So I appreciate that. Thank you to the town of Dedham for letting us do that.
I could not be standing here without these amazing supporters.
People turn this into a tailgate party in the way. Some days, board games, cornhole, cookouts.
One thing I want you to know about Brian Albert that I'm learning, he's a wise ass. And he does this thing where he interjects humor with a very serious base. So the feeling that you're left with is like, well, he can't be joking, because it would be so inappropriate to place a joke here, but that's what he does. And he does it on a number of occasions, both throughout his testimony, during the trial, first trial, and here in this interview. So this is, him sort of mocking the Karen Reed supporters, but doing a very straight face. And this is part of the character of Brian Albert. Yeah, that's all I'll say there.
Welcome to the future of creative. Here that enhances your content without slowing you down. Whether it's your newest recipe or your latest dance move, create on the move with gear that's lighter, brighter, better. From professional lighting and audio.
And this is part of the character of Brian Albert. Yeah, that's all I'll say.
Tailgate party in the way. Some days, board games, cornhole, cookouts. It's atrocious for that family.
While the prosecutors
And I want you to also keep in mind something here. As he doubles down on the lie that they had nothing to do with John's death, he's also, with this group of people, has made every effort to keep John O'Keefe's family close. And it's really sad.
Yeah,
It's really sad. It's like,
very
can you
sad.
imagine? People have asked me, do you think Peg O'Keefe will wake up and realize that Karen's innocent? And the answer to that is no.
No.
Not only because she's completely, brainwashed or whatever you want to say, completely convinced, I guess. But because at this point, to believe that the people in the house are responsible would actually be scary, would actually feel like a threat to her safety. Because the folks in the house, Jen McCabe, for example, has gone to such incredibly great lengths to try to keep Peg specifically very close. And so close that when the FBI shows up at Jen McCabe's house after she gets home from dropping her children off at school, She sees that there are FBI agents in her driveway. She first tells them that she is somebody else, that she's her sister, that she's not Jen McCabe, because they ask her, are you Jennifer McCabe? No, I'm not. They then call her, she answers, and she says, oh, give me 10 minutes, and then you can come in. She says, I have to brush my teeth, or whatever.
It's Ashley. One more time, really quick. It's Ashley, in fact. She contacted me. I told you time. He called you. 10 minutes before 1 o'clock. She asked that question. Is that right?
At that moment, I said no, yes.
And then they got her call.
At that moment, because they just came to my house.
So let's finish that conversation.
I didn't say no, because I was in a situation where there were two officers who were different agent had come in, were asking me questions. One, they had said, can I come in and ask you questions? At first I thought they were selling something, then they identified themselves. They just dropped my kids off at school. To be completely honest, I hadn't brushed my teeth. So I kind of made two phone calls.
So next question is made. So after you said no, you hadn't done that possible. There was two almost officers from that same agency who told you to contact them. Right?
Yes.
Subsequent to that. Okay. You looked at your card. So you called me, right?
Yes, I did.
And you back in called back, right?
Yes, I did.
Now tell me the content of the conversation you had. Did you have a conversation? Yeah. Did you call me back and say, I'm calling you back because my husband told me that I lied to you, and I better clear that lie up.
So I was saying, here's what I told you before, that only answers to questions is you might want that. The next, yes.
You ultimately called these officers back, correct?
Yes.
And you explained to them that you had been untruthful, correct?
I explained that I contacted that I reached out to.
Forgot.
I contacted Matt. Yeah.
It is
I know
hot.
four off the top of my head.
Lord, it is hot.
Correct? Yes. You contacted Gary Roberts, correct?
Yes.
You contacted Eddie O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. O'Keefe, you contacted the district attorney's office, correct?
My witness advocate.
The district attorney's office.
My witness advocate who works for the district attorney's office.
And
Yeah, this is not me. This is her.
himself, correct?
I think she has it on 2 times speed.
Correct.
Yes.
Again, it's not me. It's her that has it on 2 times speed.
Yes.
I mean, unsurprisingly, she calls Brian Albert because Brian Albert is the person that she goes to for direction. The entire way, the whole time, Jen McCabe seeks direction from Brian Albert. So, of course, after the feds show up, she's going to call him. But she calls Peg O'Keefe. That shows you how much, to what great lengths this family has gone to try to keep Peg O'Keefe close. And in my guess, I'm guessing on this, it's because this way the thinking was, well, the feds got to Peg O'Keefe and sat her down and showed her the evidence
Be right
that
back.
we did this. She won't talk to me. She'll scream and yell, right? She either won't answer my call or she'll scream and yell. So the first thing she does is call her to find out whether or not, these guys are about to arrest her, or why they're there, what they want, if anybody else has been interviewed, and all of that.
Was blamed for O'Keefe's death, and the defense said this group of family members framed me to cover up what really happened that night. Ever since, their lives becoming an open season for endless conspiracy theories.
What they've done is they've dehumanized us to the sense where we're not real people. We're almost like caricatures.
All right, let me stop here. Chris Albert does not personally have direct involvement that any of us are aware of. His son is Colin Albert.
Karen Reed's lawyers have been aggressively cross-examining prosecution witness Colin Albert, the nephew of the owner of the Canton property where John O'Keefe was found in January of 2022. Albert is seen in a photo which was taken less than a month after the incident in Canton when O'Keefe died. His knuckles on his right hand are bruised. Now, yesterday, Colin Albert testified that he was at the house on the night in question, but never saw John O'Keefe. Also, on cross-examination this morning, Colin Albert told the jury that he has known the lead state police investigator in this case, Trooper Michael Proctor, since he was a child.
He was known that was when John was there, so I drove him home.
But why would it matter if he was inside if John O'Keefe was killed outside by Karen Reed? Why did he call Ellen Beatty, a girl he wasn't dating, out of the blue at 12:33? Why did his family try to silence the Beatties? Why did his mother offer Proctor a thank you dinner?
a medical director as well. I chose to specialize in women's health because I feel like every woman needs a voice. Every woman needs somebody to fight for her. And it's my mission to make sure that any woman who comes to me for care, that her voice is heard, and that we address any issues that she's going through to help her through this transition and make it a little bit more seamless and comfortable for her as her body goes through this change. Actually, I have my own story to tell you about my own experience. As I started going through perimenopause and started suffering from symptoms, I went to my own physician, who knew very well that I was a board-certified OB/GYN, and I went to her with an inventory of my symptoms and what my concerns were, and basically said, I think I'm ready to start HRT. And ultimately her response to me was, you're too young, I don't do that without getting lab.
Correct.
Who's this idiot? Here we go.
And I would beat them up.
Did you say you would beat them up, or did you say I would fuck you up?
I said I will F you up.
No, you didn't say I will F you up. What did you actually say?
That I would fuck them up.
There you go, AJ. Make him say what he said. Damn right.
Somebody's ass, right?
Correct.
What would that mean?
That I would beat them up.
So when you said I would fuck you up and I would beat your ass, was that a friendly invitation?
No,
It was a threat, correct?
I don't know if I would call
Sound like one of me.
it. I'm not sure.
Cut this shit, boy. You know damn well that was a threat.
Walked up to you and said, I would fuck you up. I would beat your ass. You would take that as a threat?
I
If they
would.
walked up to me, yeah.
But if they didn't walk up, they just shouted across the street. You stood there and said, I will fuck you up, I will beat your ass. That's not right.
I'm not sure.
Were you threatening advantage boys, guys, whoever they are?
Yeah, kinda.
Were you threatening them with violence?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah. In addition to Brian and Nicole Albert, you're also very close with Chris and Julia Albert, correct?
Yes.
And the one person who we know has perjured himself, it's not a question, it's not even like a funny gray line. We 100% know commit perjury was Colin Albert. And Bev is protecting him. Has made it so he can't be one
Basically.
of the third-party culprits in this
Basically.
case.
This will be the first statement of its kind in my dozen years of thought like district attorney. The harassment of witnesses and the murder prosecution of Karen Reed is absolutely baseless. It should be an outrage to any decent person, and it needs to stop. Innuendo is not evidence. False narratives are not evidence. However, what evidence does show is that John O'Keefe never entered the home at 34 Fairview Road in Camden the night he died. Location data from his phone, recovered from the lawn beneath his body when he was transported to the hospital, shows that this phone did not enter that home.
The data centers on a location slightly closer to the house than the roadside. Although several records show the same center coordinate with differing accuracy radii. Some of these location records are shown in the map below in white. So let's go down and look at what you had in your report for the area in white. In area in white that you're referring to, there are two
Some have, without any evidence, pointed to 18-year-old Colin Albert, a nephew of the homeowner, and accused him of attacking John O'Keefe as he entered the home. But phone evidence shows O'Keefe never entered the home at all. Testimony from witnesses tell us that 18-year-old Colin Albert had left his uncle's home before John O'Keefe and Karen Reed had arrived outside the residence. There was no fight inside that home. John O'Keefe did not enter the home.
What's the proof?
Colin Albert, the young man being vilified, was not present when Reed's vehicle and John O'Keefe arrived to the street. This is a false narrative.
Is it?
Guys, this is what I look like without anything. You're like, without anything, what are you talking about, man? Well, let me tell you what I'm talking about. I wear compression shirts.
But was not present when Reed's vehicle and John O'Keefe arrived to the street. This is a false narrative.
Just to be clear, I'm gonna do this slowly. Brian Albert's younger brother is Chris Albert, correct?
Yes.
Chris Albert is married to Julie Albert.
Yes.
You consider Chris and Julie family, even though there may not be a blood relation as well, correct?
Yes.
Chris Albert is a Canton Select Board member, is that right?
Now he is, yes.
This guy, who was a pizza shop owner, just so happens to be a part of the group, a part of the body, the selectmen, for the town, who then has jurisdiction over the police. And when the town was voting or insisting that there
You can't
be
make this
independent
shit
audit
up.
on the police department because of this case, guess who voted against that? And he was overruled because so many people in the town insisted there be an independent audit. Chris Albert. If you have children, what? To protect them from going to prison for the rest of their lives for something that they did, probably blackout drunk. The one time they make a mistake, they do something stupid in a blackout drunk episode, what would you do? And how would you go about protecting your child from the possibility of a life in prison? If moving far away wasn't an option, which it is not for the Alberts and the McCabes, they're not leaving town, they're not moving to the other side of the country, that's not their side, no way, right? Brian Albert has 6 siblings, he's the oldest of 7. I mean, how many cousins do these kids probably have? There's no way they're leaving town, so what's the alternative option? Oh, I know. Put key members of my family in positions of power to ensure that nobody ever gets close to my child. Build a wall of protection around them. Keep them close and make sure use every bit of leverage and power that I have, that I built, that my family has built in the town that we've had for generations of our family have grown up in, to make sure that my child avoids prison. And that is what tethers him to this case. That's why he is there. Because Chris sees himself as the defender of Colin. Like, in order to get to my son, you gotta come through me.
But clearly, you have a lot of ties to the city of King. Do you agree?
Sure.
You live there?
Yes.
Work there?
Yes.
Family there?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, everybody wait, hold on. Alright. Notice he's rocking himself. Notice the rocking. His shoulders are going back and forth. That's behavior that he's using to try to calm himself down, right? What do we do when we're trying to calm a baby down? We rock the baby, right? So, just notice the body language, notice the eyes, notice that he's tensing up, right? So he's trying to calm himself down.
And you also are a town selectman in the city of Canton.
Recently elected.
The town of Canton, I should
It's
say.
the town, correct.
And not only that, but your brother, Kevin Albert, is a police officer in Canton.
He is.
Your brother, Brian Albert, with whom you grew up, is currently retired, but had been a Boston police officer who lived in Canton, correct?
Correct.
As a town selectman, you have some power, do you not?
I'm one of 5 selectmen.
And as a police detective, Kevin Albert has some power, does he not?
Objection.
To state.
And you also have close friends on the Canton Police Department, do you not?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
I have some.
Now, you know that Massachusetts State Police Trooper Michael Proctor is the lead investigator on this case, correct?
I know that. But I've known for
About 15 years or so?
roughly
Who is Kenneth Berkowitz?
the former Canton police chief.
And how do you know him?
His son and my son, the same age. So they played on some sports teams when they were younger together, I think.
Look at you. You're doing everything you can to get your blood pressure in check. And now you have super beats heart chews by human.
Together, I think.
Alright, so let me just also point out that Kenneth Berkowitz is one of the police, he was the police chief at the time of this incident, but he was also one of the people that just was driving around, happened to be driving past 34th Fairview and found more tail light pieces. Oh, how about that?
I believe that's my fundraiser for when I was running for the select board, the event that I spoke of earlier.
You would agree with me that one of your functions as a selectman is to oversee public safety in the town?
Yes.
And you would agree that the police department is a key component of public safety in the town of Canton?
Yes.
Look at that, look at that. Okay. You see all that moving around? You see the scratching of his face? You see? He knows this question is coming. He's prepared for this question. And he can't control himself. I'm telling you, one thing you start to learn when you are learning about lie detection is that unless you're a sociopath, it's incredibly difficult for people to lie. This is me interrupting your programming to remind you to like this video right now. And don't forget to subscribe. Like this video. So in Chris's thinking at that time, how am I going to stay local in town and protect my son? That was on the list of ways that he could do that. And so he runs for local government and ends up getting on the town select committee, and that is all after John McCabe's passing.
To the sense where we're not real people. We're almost like caricatures. We're a pawn.
Chris is very contrite about this.
Really, dude?
He was the closest with John because they were neighbors at the time. They did have problems because Chris and Julie Albert had 3 sons, and they were a little disrespectful. Colin Albert is a punk kid, and they would walk through John O'Keefe's yard as a shortcut. And John was very, what's the word, anal retentive about his things. He liked his lawn a certain way, he liked no shoes in the house, and he was anal retentive about it. This became like an inside joke amongst the Chris Albert family. So much so that they had dubbed him
Can you explain for the jury who or what is Nevercracker?
What is Nevercracker?
Yes.
The character?
That's what I'm asking.
It's a character in a cartoon called Monster House.
And would you agree with me that Nevercracker in the movie Monster House was this kind of old curmudgeon who didn't want anybody on his lawn, correct?
The character, yes.
He was the get off my lawn guy, correct?
In the movie, yeah.
Was your nickname and your wife Julie's nickname for John O'Keefe?
Mr. Nevercracker.
He almost busted out laughing when he said that.
He had John O'Keefe plugged into his contacts as Nevercracker, correct?
Correct.
In fact, you were there one time when Julie showed Karen Reed, her phone to show how John O'Keefe was plugged in as Nevercracker, correct?
I believe so.
And this whole nickname started because of a conflict that Colin Albert had with John O'Keefe.
Not correct.
So the words not correct, we have not heard. Which means the answer is correct. In all likelihood.
Complained to you about things that Colin was doing.
Not correct.
He would tell you Colin used to throw beer cans or beer bottles in his bushes, correct?
That is not correct.
It probably is correct.
Colin,
So now what we have here from Chris is he's locked in, he's doubling down on lying about there having been issues between Colin and John. So now we know for certain that there were issues between Colin and John. This entire testimony, Chris has been joking about how much John was OCD about the lawn. How he didn't want anybody on the lawn.
Yeah.
Right? He texts him and he says, I'm gonna fuck up your lawn if you don't get over here. Now he's saying he doesn't know whether or not he liked his children.
Liars.
So South Carolina probably just did the coolest thing I've seen any state do in a while. So if you live in a South Carolina zip code,
Whether or not he liked his children walking through, cutting through the lawn. We know for sure that's a lie. So now we know he's lying. You understand what I'm saying? This is a lie. It's a stupid thing to lie about. Just saying, yeah, he didn't like it. Who cares? Who cares unless you're trying to actively obfuscate the truth? You're trying to tell everybody
Fact.
there's nothing to see here, ladies and gentlemen. This man right now is lying. He's bold-faced lying. And we know he's lying because we know that he knows John didn't want his kids traversing through his lawn. And this has become the family joke.
first of all,
Funny. Come on, that's funny.
whose house is that in the background?
That's John's.
And Julie on the left.
Correct.
With the second photo.
It's funny. It is funny. Oh my god.
Okay. That is also John's house in the background there?
Correct.
And again, that's you on the right and Julie on the left, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the photo. To the text that you sent him on January 28th when you were trying to get him to come out and you threatened to, quote, fuck up his lawn if he didn't come out then.
So there was a beef, if you will, between the children, Chris Albert's kids, and John O'Keefe. But Chris and John were friendly, both because John would go in with his nephew to the pizza shop, and it's Chris Albert who ultimately texts John to come to the bar where they were that night, to come to the waterfall bar. Or like, for a guy who's so scared, he's always at his pizza shop. Like anybody at any time can just go see Chris Albert, because despite what you might think, which is, oh, he's probably got some kid working the front, he does not. He's got like sports radio playing all day, and it's like a regular New York kind of style pizza shop. Actually, it's kind of an endearing place. this girl was kind enough to email me this really funny story about how they went to Canada. They did the same tour that my sister and I did. After talking to him for a while, he brings it up. He ends up saying to them, like, do you know who I am? You know, do you know the story? And he ends up telling them about it, right? So as much as he wants to say that, oh, this is, you know, such a terrible thing, and it's made us all victims, and I'm sure in some ways that's true, it's also something that he's clearly made every effort to exploit. So this, you know, I have to just call a spade when I see it, and I know this little song and dance here to be bullshit.
People, we're almost like caricatures. We're pawns. Have you each of you been called murderers? Like actual murderers? Oh, yeah. On a daily basis. Anybody who's touched this case has been called a murderer at some point.
All right, so this is a fascinating little discussion here. First of all, they're called murderers because they are responsible for the death of John O'Keefe. Not all of them, obviously. Everybody in this group has different levels of culpability. I actually don't think anyone in this group is directly responsible for his death. I think Brian Higgins is the one that actually, you know, beat John up and caused the fall. But Brian Albert is the fixer. He's the one who says to Brian Higgins, just get out of here, I'll take care of it. And that's why Brian Higgins goes directly to the Canton PD. You also have to know that Brian Higgins used the Canton PD to crash in Canton on nights when you get really drunk and didn't want to drive back to wherever he was living at the time. But on this night, the reason he goes to dispatch, which is the first place we see him walk into when he goes to the police station, is to find out whether Brian Albert was going to rat him out. Because he wasn't sure. So he goes to the Canton PD, goes right into dispatch, and he's hanging out there for a period of time.
Do you recognize the person in this video?
It appears to be Mr. Brian Higgins.
Okay. And what is he wearing? Describe it for the jurors.
Black sweatshirt.
I'm gonna cut
some
this
sort
off
of
at
logo in the
4.
front. Appears to be blue jeans and shoes with a white trim.
What do you see in the video?
It appears to be an individual wearing a black beanie hat, black dark colored sweatshirt with some design on it, and something illuminating by his face.
Can we enhance the time, please? What time is that?
It says 1:34 and 53 seconds.
Try to see, like, did Brian Albert do me dirty? Did he call this in on me? And he doesn't. And he didn't.
I used to tell clients we were having Wi-Fi issues to buy more time when people call me sick.
And he didn't, right? Now we know that Brian Higgins is on the phone at 1:30 in the morning at the police station. I will go on a ledge and say it's very possible that he's talking to Brian Albert. We don't know that for sure.
And why was the FA's definition that was in the house, signed a proper agreement, he sat down with FBI agents and his attorney, Mr. Smith's attorney, and gave a clause. And during the federal process, Brian Higgins committed to destroying his cell phone and tearing up his SIM card because he was told to do so by Michael Mars, DA. And he also said,
What?
Brian Albert to do the same thing.
But on the stand, so you know, he lies
Whoa.
and says he's not spoken to anybody.
Okay.
On the phone.
Didn't hear that before.
Oh my God, on a daily basis. Anybody who's touched this case has been called a murderer at some point.
Boy. Now this is interesting. Matt McCabe is so intolerant of the idea that he's responsible for this murder that he is using distance here. He's trying to say, well, we're not murder. I mean, anybody who's even gone near the case has been called a murderer, right? He's trying to say, I mean, I'm not a murderer. Anybody, we're all murderers, right? That's called distancing. That is what he's doing here, which I think is kind of funny. He just can't tolerate, the culpability that he actually has. And he has a fair amount of culpability. These people all know what really happened to John. This is not only a criminal trying to frame somebody else, accusing somebody else of his murder.
friends with us who are cop killers.
Well, that's true. I mean, unfortunately, you are cop killers, and that sucks for you, but it is the truth of the matter, and that's true. These people are responsible for John's death. This is a very cute picture, by the way.
3+ years, the saga wrapped up yesterday. Reed captured celebrating at dinner with her father, and today, seen walking with her attorney, Alan Jackson.
I didn't even know I'd be here today, so I had no plans.
Meanwhile, Keith's family and friends struggling with the verdict.
I'm just sad for John's family. And
Shut up, Nicole.
I feel like they didn't get justice for him, and our lives just changed forever.
Why speak out now after the verdict?
We took what we thought
Yeah,
was
why?
and let the court do its job.
After a night of hanging out at a local bar in a brutal 2022 blizzard, Brian and his wife Nicole hosted a late-night gathering at their home. An invitation had been extended to Reed and O'Keefe, but Brian Albert says neither of them ever entered his home that night.
This is February 1st at 12:50.
So this is about 3 days after the event in question.
So Brian Albert is telling us the channel that Julie told him Channel 4 is a DNA feed. DNA is a sub shop that is owned by Chris Albert. This is from Matt McCabe to myself, my sister Nicole, and Brian.
Community force position.
Eating, I assume. Ask Chris to ask some questions and tell him the guy never went into the house. Yes,
And was Brian Albert responding?
exactly.
O'Keefe was found lying unconscious in the snow of Albert's front lawn. He was pronounced dead.
Damn, it's hot.
The defense's theory, a violent altercation at the Alberts' home,
Yep.
possibly involving other members
It was a
of law
fight.
enforcement. Did John ever come in the house?
Never.
Lies.
You never saw John O'Keefe in the house, right?
Never.
Yeah, so,
Lies.
for those people who are interested in lie detection, using never in this context is extraordinarily problematic and is indicative of a lie. Right? So it is appropriate to use the term never if I ask you, have you ever been skydiving? And you say, no, I've never been skydiving. That would be an appropriate use of the term never. This, did John and Karen come into the house? Never. That is not the appropriate use of the term never. What the correct answer to this question is and was is no.
These are people in your own community who believe the conspiracy theories and believe that there are other law enforcement officials and agents involved in this. Why is it people in your own community who believe these conspiracy?
FYI, you'll note that Matt Gutman does not get an answer to this question. He gets a
He doesn't.
definition and a reframing from Brian Albert. So let's hear the question again.
And agents involved in this. Why is it people in your own community who believe these conspiracy theories?
You do realize that this conspiracy is true. It would take 30 to 50 people. You have to have multiple cops at 2 different police departments, multiple civilians.
This brilliant device keeps your home cool in summer, even during heat waves and power outages. It's smaller than a lunchbox, cools any room within 3 minutes, and uses 98.7% less energy than your AC. It was invented by a former rocket engineer from Houston, and it's now taking the U.S. by storm. George designed this device after a citywide power outage left his grandparents without AC in the searing summer heat. With inside temperatures reaching 90 degrees, George took matters into his own hands. The result is an ingenious invention that's destroying the $5 billion AC industry, helping families around the country. Having worked on cooling systems for deep space rockets, he reverse engineered the existing aircon unit in his house and was able to build a more efficient cooling device. It sucks in the surrounding hot air, passes it through a liquid compressed cooling cartridge, and then blasts cold air back into the room. Immediately after he turned it on, temperatures in the sweltering hot living room plummeted from 93 to 63 degrees in just 3 minutes. Amazed at the results, George put his prototype through controlled testing. His invention cooled down a 400 square foot room by 30 degrees in a minute, keeping it cool using only 2.3% of the electricity of regular AC units. Weighing just 2 pounds, the small and lightweight design allowed the device to run for 12 hours, recycling the air already.
Multiple cops at 2 different police departments, multiple civilians.
Whatever, dude.
Medical examiner, firemen.
This is just the rehearsed statement by Brian Albert that he thinks sounds true, that he thinks makes it sound not culpable. It does not take 30 or 40 people to be involved in a conspiracy.
It
All it
doesn't.
takes is the people in this house to double down, lie, making it very simple, saying he never came into the house. Tell him the guy never came into the house. That was their rehearsed statement that they were going to stick to no matter what. There's two things you need to understand in order to understand this case, right? There's the police that investigated the case from the Massachusetts State Police and the Canton cops who showed up and were the ones that did the original investigation because the Massachusetts State Police couldn't get there easily, number one, because of the snowstorm, but number two, they did not know John O'Keefe was dead from the start. So originally this was investigated by the local cops because it wasn't a homicide yet or an unattempted death yet. Right? So at that point, because John was not pronounced dead, MSP, the Massachusetts State Police, were not called in until a little bit later, and they, consequently, Michael Proctor, lead investigator, and his partner, Yuri Buchanan, don't ever go to 34 Fairview on that day. Okay, so you got to separate them from the people in the house. People in the house are part of a family, little family conspiracy, and the people that conspiracy includes, if you want to use that word, although I caution to stay away from it, they include the folks that are at the meeting, the Minion meeting, at the 7 o'clock a.m. hour after the cops clear the scene. John O'Keefe's in the hospital. Carrie, Karen, they're gone. Carrie Roberts is not part of a conspiracy. She's an honest, generally human who believes Karen Reed is guilty because of the influence of Jennifer McCabe. So the people that are part of what we might consider the conspiracy, or the people in the house who know who killed John, include this group here, Kevin Albert, who are Brian and Chris Albert's younger brother, and who is also a police detective in Canton. Notably, he had been suspended because he got drunk with lead investigator Michael Proctor and lost his badge and his gun when they were investigating a case out of Cape Cod. So, Julie Albert, who is Chris's wife, was at that meeting. So those are the folks that are at the Minion meeting.
And EMTs. That's how preposterous and silly this is. And great question. I don't understand how people want this.
Brian Albert says he and Nicole found out about John's death when Jen McCabe, who is Nicole's sister, barged into their bedroom.
She was just upset, and I immediately thought something had happened to one of her children or one of my children.
So this is Nicole's rehearsed statement. This is what she knows she's supposed to say. I immediately thought something had happened to one of her children or one of my children, because these two are expecting us to believe, and they really want.
What if one simple tube could turn constant itching into complete comfort? This is what would happen if...
Because these two are expecting us to believe, and they really expect you at home listening to this, you to believe that Brian Albert, a 30-year veteran of the Boston Police Department, who was a former Marine, and the eldest of 7 children, 5 boys, 1 sister, he wants you to believe. And this, by the way, is his parents' home. This is the childhood home. The house that we're talking about at 34 Fairview, that wasn't his house. That was the house he took from his parents, okay? His parents' property that he lives in with his 5 children, with his wife. Brian Albert wants us to believe that the cavalry shows up on his front lawn and nobody wakes up. He doesn't know they're there.
Lies.
He also expects us to believe that they have a 90-pound German Shepherd sleeping underneath, right at the window that overlooks the flagpole where John O'Keefe is found.
You own a dog inside, correct?
Yes.
German Shepherd named Chloe.
Yes.
Next, Brian had a dog named Ricky Strangers. Is that true?
It's happening that way, yes.
Testified that quote, it started barking because it realized people were downstairs in court. Right?
Yes.
And she did bark that night, right?
Yes.
And the reason she gave under oath for why she started barking was because there were people downstairs that were not, right?
Yes.
So in that instance,
Yes.
And then you allowed her to stay downstairs and monitor her with the other two in the house, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Matter of fact, you testified in that state grand jury, the same April grand jury, April 2022. So I let it go out to the bathroom, I let it back in. I kind of monitored it a little because we usually don't have people over the house, and the dog's not for strangers, period. So I was just making sure that the dog was all right with people that were over, in quote, right?
Yes.
You see the windows, just describe, sort of, a little bit. On that, at the bathroom.
Yes.
From a,
Yes.
from the upper left, two windows, correct?
Yes.
The German Shepherd was 6 feet from the window, correct?
I don't know that for sure.
That's where that was.
Well, that doesn't mean that's where she always is. She was also in the closet area sometimes.
Oh, so now it was in the closet.
I didn't say she was in the closet. I said she sleeps in the closet area sometimes. I don't remember.
Why did she sleep on that mat?
Judge, I don't know.
You're being led to leave. Karen Reed screaming and yelling, running around the lawn. Multiple police officers, firefighters, multiple fire trucks. We're being led to believe that Brian Albert did not know this was happening, and it was only until the scene was clear that he finds out, because Jen storms in his bedroom to tell him. Now, really think about that. Really think about what I'm saying. We're also being led to believe that Jennifer McCabe pulls up, sees a man who appears to be possibly dead on the front lawn of her sister's home, who she alleges to be very close to, and Brian Albert, who she's known since kindergarten. Okay? And does not go into the house. Doesn't go into the house. Doesn't go into the house to get blankets, try to warm him up, which now makes perfect sense because, of course, Jen McCabe is dead. Right? But when you're trying to figure out this man's, allegedly unconscious in the snow from hypothermia, you're not going to run in the house, turn on all the lights, scream and yell, I need blankets, somebody come help, Brian come help? I mean, do you understand how absurd that is? And when asked about this on the witness stand, her responses are disgraceful, and it's embarrassing to even see her try to answer these questions this way.
You said there's a man in the snow. Do you know why you chose those words?
I think I just wanted to get out the most specific details. So a man in the snow versus, John O'Keefe into a story. I think I just was get the details to them as fast as possible to get help there to him as fast as possible.
Clients need to have an advocate on their side.
McCabe, we're going to do everything we can to put you on the right path.
Everybody knows the place to find a place is
Aquarium.com.
Possible.
When you arrived at the scene, you didn't go in. Not so much later, correct?
Our focus was John.
You knew that Brian Albert was inside the house. You just met with him hours earlier, correct?
Yes.
You knew that his window was 30 feet away. You're staring at it. You look at it if you wanted to, correct?
It's off to an angle.
And you didn't go in the house then either.
I did not know.
You knew that John O'Keefe was clinging to life during those precious minutes and seconds. Is that right?
I did, yes.
And you also knew that Brian Albert, your brother-in-law, was a first responder trained to deal with people in that kind of distress, correct?
In that moment, my only thoughts were John and everything we could do for John.
And you knew that there were more blankets inside the house. Is that right?
I did, yes. There were more blankets in the house.
And you still never went in, did you?
No, I went and attended to John because once I finished calling 911, I went over to John and Gary Roberts asked me to take over compressions. So I felt like that was more important and 911 was on the way. I never thought about going in the house. I just thought, how can I help John?
You never thought about going in the house. But you did pull out your cell phone and made two phone calls.
After I called 911, I tried calling my sister, yes.
You need to run. You were going to chest compressions at 6:07 and 6:08 were you?
I was walking over when I was calling.
You were calling your sister on the phone, weren't you?
I was calling them to see if they were okay. I was going right over to work on him.
And screaming for Brian Albert to come out.
not important phone calls, but they were important enough for you to make while John is clinging to life right there in front of you, right?
As I was walking over, I called to see if she would answer.
And she didn't answer. Let's talk about that. She didn't answer one of you.
So if we're going to talk about it, well, we're beyond the lunch break.
Two more questions.
Okay.
I'll wrap. Okay. Let's talk about that real quick.
Sure.
She didn't answer the phone, did she?
No, she didn't.
So you have a situation where a man is laying dead or dying in the front yard of your sister's house. You see nothing in terms of life inside the house. Lights are coming on. They're not getting up. They're certainly not coming outside, right?
They were sound asleep
They weren't coming outside, were they?
because they were asleep.
They didn't know if they were asleep. All you knew was there was a severely injured man on the front lawn of your house. Your sister didn't answer.
Correct, she didn't answer.
Did you think your sister might have been in peril? Did you think to go inside the house and check that they're okay?
I had no reason to think that they weren't okay.
You had no reason to think they were okay. A man was dead and dying on their lawn, and your sister got injured with them. And nobody's coming out to the chaos of apparently shooting on the front lawn. You didn't think there was some reason to believe they could have been in peril?
I didn't because your client was screaming she hit him. She had a cracked tail light. She was crying. She hit him. I didn't. But my focus, and I finished with
Shut up, Jim. Shut up, Jim.
John never came into the house, so I had no concern for anyone's safety inside the house.
The reason you didn't go inside the house is because you knew better. You knew better. You knew she wasn't in peril.
Jim,
You knew that by now
shut up.
you were worried at all about them, weren't you?
I was not worried at all because something happened on the front lawn that had nothing to do with anything inside that house.
You weren't worried about it at all. Because you knew what really happened.
So why doesn't Brian Albert come out of the house? Why
Yeah.
does he go to such great lengths to try to pretend like they didn't know anything was happening? And where's Chloe? We're being led to believe never makes a sound, even though she's sleeping right next to his bed, by his side, in the bedroom, which overlooks the front lawn. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, in reality, Chloe was removed from the scene. I don't know if Chloe was murdered, if she was shot on site. Caitlin Albert, which is maybe the more likely scenario, the eldest daughter of these two, whose boyfriend comes and picks her up around 2 in the morning that morning.
Got rid of the dog. Yep.
Because there's no dog in this house. No dog is ever seen, no dog is ever heard. And these two idiots both claim that Chloe was there, she just never made a sound. Now, we also learned from Nicole Albert on the stand that this dog has gotten out of the gate before to attack other animals, other dogs, and had a history of biting people.
She's a large gender. Yeah, 70 pounds. No, she did not like other dogs.
Ms. Albert, Chloe has injured other humans, hasn't she?
Sure.
Okay, well, on that.
In one incident in May of 22, when she got out and was fighting with another dog, the woman whose dog it was tried to break up the two dogs, and while she was trying to break up the two dogs, she got injured.
And you mentioned that Chloe actually escaped from the backyard.
Yes.
And that happened one time in your house, correct?
It happened a few times, yes.
And Mr. Albert let Chloe out when he arrived that night, correct?
Yep.
Oh my God. This, by the way, is very part and parcel to how German Shepherds behave. And that's not to crap on German Shepherds. That is coming from a dog expert who has explained that German Shepherds were bred very specifically to be defense dogs. And as a
Yep.
result, in their DNA, even German Shepherds who have no bite history, never been aggressive, can all of a sudden, one day, shoot out the front door and attack the postal worker. It would not be at all unusual to imagine that Chloe could have escaped the front yard, particularly if she knew that there was some kind of a violent altercation taking place in the front of the house, say, for example, in or around the garage. those of you that have not seen John O'Keefe's injuries, I cannot show them here, or YouTube will not show you this
Yeah,
video. But if you look up attack,
I'm gonna cut off here. At your own time, I think that that the photos of his injuries are indeed um, are public record, and I myself saw the injuries, and the injuries in question look like an animal attack. I repeat, the injuries on John O'Keefe look like an animal attack, which I believe that he got into it with the people in the house, and the dog Chloe was either stuck on him or the dog attacked him, and I believe that John O'Keefe passed away that way. And here's the thing that people need to remember too, is that there's a reason why German Shepherd are police dogs. And the reason is, if you look at a German Shepherd compared to a pit bull, yes, a pit bull is also it's also breed to be an attack dog. But the thing is, the German Shepherds are supposed to be easier to control than a pit bull. So I'm just throwing that on out there. With that being said, I'm gonna cut the cut off right here. Um, Please like, share, subscribe, and I'm also gonna say this too. Please take care of yourselves out there and stay cool and keep your head on swivel. Peace.